France's defense minister wants to learn from her Israeli counterpart what the country knew about the clients of an Israeli spyware company who possibly targeted the mobile phone of President Macron. Both ministers met on Wednesday in Paris. NTD's El Rhodes has more on this.
Israel's defense minister told his French counterpart that Israel is taking seriously allegations that spyware developed by an Israeli company was possibly used against the French president. Benny Gantz met French Defense Minister Florence Parly in Paris on Wednesday. An investigation published by several media organizations says the spy software Pegasus had allegedly been used in attempted and successful hacks of smartphones belonging to government officials, journalists and human rights activists. French newspaper Le Monde reported that French President Emmanuel Macron's phone was on a list of potential targets for surveillance by a Moroccan security agency. Morocco denies the reports. NSO Group, that owns and sells the spyware, said the report about Pegasus was full of wrong assumptions and uncorroborated theories, and denies that Macron was targeted. Both Israel and France are investigating.
Il y a des vérifications techniques qui sont menées.
Technical inspections are underway.
Détails techniques, mais
I won't give any details, but it's serious, in-depth, very technical work, and these inspections are ongoing.
sont actuellement menées.
We also have offered technical support to all people whose names appeared on the Pegasus file.
Gantz on Wednesday shared some initial findings. He responded to the reports earlier this month.
As a matter of policy, the State of Israel authorizes the export of cyber products solely to governments, only for lawful use, and exclusively for the purpose of preventing and investigating crime and terrorism.
NSO says it doesn't know who its clients target using Pegasus, and that if it receives complaints, it can shut down the software for any clients found to have abused it. The fallout from the Pegasus scandal has been felt around the world, with protests erupting in Hungary, India and other places. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
Hollywood actor George Clooney commented on recent flooding and landslides at Lake Como, stating they are much worse than anybody thinks. The actor and his wife own a property in the area. NTD's John Robson has the story.
Among those affected by recent landslides in the towns surrounding Lake Como in northern Italy is Hollywood actor George Clooney. Clooney has a holiday villa on the shores of Lake Como. In a video shot by a local broadcaster and shared on the internet, Clooney says, "It's so much worse than anybody thinks. It's much worse." Towns around Lake Como were hit by floods on Tuesday, leaving cars overturned and roads covered in debris.
There was a landslide, which then collected in one place. Then it broke free, and then it was like an avalanche of water. It took away the road. It took away the cement stairs.
Italian firefighters carried out more than 60 rescues after storms wreaked havoc around the picturesque lake.
Ho salvato mia madre di 90 anni.
I saved my 90-year-old mother from drowning in all the rubble and detritus.
Queste 3 auto accartocciate.
These 3 smashed cars that arrived from the road above.
In central Chernobyl, streets turned to rivers. Residents were seen removing debris from surrounding a church. Clooney commented, "It was very bad in Chernobyl, but here in La Lior, it's much worse." Rocks and mud descended from the mountains, submerging houses and villas. The landslides occurred after heavy rainfall struck the popular holiday destination. No deaths or injuries were reported. Joanne Robson, NTD News.
French media says authorities on Wednesday recovered most of over £1 million worth of jewellery stolen from a Paris boutique by an armed robber who fled on a scooter. NTD's Natalia Nating reports.
According to local media, French authorities on Wednesday detained 2 suspects over a heist at a high-end Paris boutique where an armed robber fled the scene on an electric scooter. Local broadcaster BFM TV reported French authorities had recovered most of the £1.7 million worth of jewellery stolen from a Chaumet store in central Paris. Citing sources close to the investigation, BFM-TV said 2 suspects were detained at motorway services near the city of Metz, close to the border with Germany. There was no immediate confirmation from French police. A CCTV image from the scene showed a man, identified by the broadcaster as the suspect robber, in a grey suit inside the store. Local media reported he calmly presented himself to staff as a customer and asked to view some jewellery before pulling out a handgun and grabbing the jewels. Another CCTV image broadcast by BFM-TV showed what looked like the same man riding a stand-up electric scooter down the street with a white bag hanging from the handlebars. Xiaomi is one of France's oldest jewellery brands and is owned by luxury goods conglomerate LVMH. Natalia Nutting, NTD News.
Russian police took the editor-in-chief of an investigative media outlet in for questioning and searched his home on Wednesday. He says the moves are part of a crackdown on media critical of the Kremlin. NTD's Rhodes has more for us.
Russian police raided the home of the chief editor of an investigative media outlet on Wednesday. The insider chief said the raid was part of an ongoing campaign to raise pressure on media critical of the Kremlin.
We saw previous raids. It turned out suddenly that all our investigative journalists have become criminals in the last months for some reason. I doubt it's a coincidence.
He spoke after leaving the police station where he was brought for questioning as a witness in a slander case. Roman Dobrokotov doubts the raid is related to the September parliamentary elections.
They just come for one after another. Now they've come for investigative journalists. They won't stop until they press them to the end.
In recent months, the government has designated several independent media outlets and journalists as foreign agents. The label means additional government scrutiny and carries strong pejorative connotations. Last week, the insider was added to the list. A rights group says police confiscated Dobrokotov's laptops, phones and passport. He said work will be more difficult now, but will continue.
Investigations will go out, even if I'm arrested. If they hope to halt the work of the news site, they hope in vain.
The news outlet has worked with the Dutch-based investigative group Bellingcat to investigate high-profile cases, such as the nerve agent poisoning in the UK of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal. Russian state officials have called the group's work Western propaganda. The Kremlin says any cases being pursued against outlets are motivated by upholding the law rather than politics. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
The Mediterranean island of Cyprus is getting creative as the pandemic wanes and Europe reopens for business. The island aims to attract new tourists with its millennia-old harbour. NTD's Joy Duguid brings us the story.
Amathunta Limassol is located on Cyprus's southern coast. As global interest in diving tourism increases, the Mediterranean island hopes to recoup its pandemic losses by opening up an underwater site, an ancient harbour for a new age called Amathus.
It's certainly unique to Cyprus, and indeed the whole of the eastern Mediterranean, due to its state of preservation and proximity to the shoreline.
French archaeologists believe the ancient harbour to be an incomplete military structure. Demetrius the Besieger, a mighty warrior king and successor of Alexander the Great, likely began building it 2,400 years ago. That was to thwart an invasion from rival ruler of Egypt, Ptolemy I, another of Alexander's heirs. Submerged stone slabs are all that remain of 3 majestic piers.
The excavators suggest that the harbour was never completed, because when Ptolemy reclaimed Cyprus, he didn't want a harbour lying across from his seat of power, which was in Alexandria in Egypt.
Near the snorkelling site is the Mariners' Compound. The above-ground site is a more traditional tourist destination, accompanying the underwater views. Ruins of bathhouses and temples are accented by still intact columns, a hallmark of Greek architecture.
For sure, it will be tourists who are interested more about archaeology who would want to see the Amathunta harbour underwater with a mask and flippers.
divers have been exploring the wreck of MS Zenobia for years. The ship was a Swedish ferry that sank in the deeper waters of Lamaka in 1980. But Cyprus needs a new attraction, so now workers are preparing the site for visitors. And diving crews cleaning the vegetation will mark underwater routes for swimmers to follow.
Work to promote the harbour has just begun, and part of the undersea growth will be removed. This is taking place with permission from the scientific committees as well as the responsible government departments.
Tourism accounts for around 13% of Cyprus's economy. The island is hurting as tourist numbers were down 85% in 2020 compared to 2019. Thankfully, Cyprus earned top marks for cleanest waters among EU nations. A plus as the shallow area of the ruins, while good for snorkelling, isn't home to much sea life. Joy Dugid, NTD News.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stu Lees. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.